Do you believe in like manifesting things, like in the power of positive thinking? Not even necessarily positive about.
I never took that line too much. I just was always in the headspace of purify my heart, be good, and just let whatever's supposed to happen, and not really think that I should guide it, because I really don't think we know where we're supposed to go.
Hi, and welcome to the Dayna Show, where we discuss in English day-to-day life of Israeli citizens, our concerns and aspirations for the country, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dayna Kaplan, and we're so glad that you could join us. For you, especially for someone who's had like a really successful career, right?
Well, it depends what you would say is success.
Okay.
I think it's success for me because, I raised a family and I don't have any, except for my mortgage, I don't have any debts. I'm going week to week. I had to sell a lot of guitars and do all sorts of crazy stuff to pay my bills. But,
when you started off on this journey, right? Is this the future that you foresaw? Have you achieved the goal, or did you not have one and you were just going with the flow?
No, Shlomo Carlebach saved me. At 16, I was on the stage already performing. I wasn't going to go to college. I had this band Legacy. My dad took me to see Stevie Ray Vaughan and Santana when I was 14. And so I knew I just wanted to play guitar and be a singer-songwriter and just perform. And then I had my showcase at Atlantic Records, and it was like 21, 22. They moved me into Manhattan. I was like to party. I was like to rock and roll. And probably if I didn't meet Shlomo Carlebach like a few years later, I would have been dead because...
You think so?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It would have been AIDS. It would have been alcohol. It would have been just some type of drug. That life was so crazy, I was in the Village doing the whole singer-songwriter thing, and I wasn't grounded enough. I mean, I had studied a lot of Buddha and Zen in college, but I wasn't. There was so much I didn't know about the world and myself. Just as like now, I feel I'm just beginning. But then when I met, I was just about. They wanted to move me down to Nashville, and I was like, I want to be I thought life is about being a big star. And, getting all the applause. I remember the first time Battle of the Bands in high school, and we were playing Light My Fire, and then we won, and people are cheering. It was like that energy is such a unbelievable but dangerous energy because it's a lie. As soon as it's over.
It's an ashlaya.
Yeah, it's such a hard energy.
Yeah.
That's why so many musicians. So I got blessed after Shlomo that I was able to be a musician and have some big moments, play some big festivals and have some big audience, but never where it was like every day every day of the year, I'm playing in front of 10,000 people, because that can really, anyone who goes through that.
Why do you think that like famous people, whether musicians or actors or whatever, why do you think they always get mixed up in like self-destructive behavior? What is it about the industry that kills them? Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's I think the soul of a musician has a very high. It's at one point it's very high, but it can at that same high can easily they seek into pleasures and to. Why they have a lot of light without the vessel. Like they feel this light. They feel like this world is so foolish, all the foolish things we go after, and they want to bring down some big light, but they don't know that just the beingness is a huge thing, and they're always looking for that new high. And the high of exciting people, of inspiring people is such a drug. It's a very dangerous drug if you don't have a big vessel of understanding to be humble and come back to the reality that, your physical existence is a very short piece of this story, just like the dream. We dream at night, we wake up, it's an illusion. This also is a very short thing. So if you don't have those clues, you just keep needing and wanting, and then when it's finished, it's so hard for these people. So hard for them to just have a normal life. They need all these therapists and all this stuff to detox from this craziness.
I want to say, like, the way I think about it is that they are, like you said, they're addicted to the fame, right? But they also have an issue with their identity, because all of a sudden they become what the crowd wants them to be.
Right.
And who they really are inside, it gets completely lost.
Right.
Did you ever feel like that?
I was just writing a song today on the porch. I was a little bit later. It's called "Everybody Wants to Be Bob Dylan Except Bob," meaning he was the master of. They had the movie come out, but all of us, we already knew it. That he's always shaking off. Don't try to tag me. I'm going to do what I want. So like at the folk festival in Newport, they want him to be this acoustic idol, and he starts playing electric. And then he goes through his Christian period, and everyone's like, what the hell? And then he comes out of that, and he does something else. It's like, it's very dangerous. I was so happy, Lazer Lloyd. Lazer's my real Hebrew name. Lloyd's my English name.
What's your real English name?
Lloyd Paul.
Lloyd Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your last name?
Blumen.
Blumen, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't say it in too many places. I just, for my wife and kids, I don't want
Do you miss your
crazy
name?
fans.
Do you miss your name?
Lazer Pinchas was my given on my birth certificate, on my Brit Mila. So this is my name. My parents would use it once in a while. If they got angry at me, it was Lazer Pinchas, what are you doing? Or at my bar mitzvah. But Shlomo said, you can't get rid of it. You're going to have to use it. But I wanted to make a new YouTube channel. I told my manager, just Lloyd Paul, because it's kind of weird for people. It's not like a standard name. Like people they don't know it's real, so they think like, oh, is he trying to make it like? I like being very understated. Is he trying to make it like he's fast, like a laser beam? It's kind of.
But Lazer is like a Jewish name,
but
right?
no, you know that,
right?
Not even half of Tel Aviv would know that. You know what I'm saying? Let alone people in Michigan and Texas.
As a matter of fact, the first time I heard your name, I'm like, Lazer Floyd? Like we used to have in Toronto, we used to have like a bunch of teenagers. They used to go to like the planetarium and take acid and watch Lazer Lloyd.
Yeah.
Lazer Floyd, sorry, Lazer Floyd.
Exactly.
So I'm like, wait, is it the same guy? Is he playing off that?
Exactly. So there's a part of me that's connected to that name. Shlomo. He kept calling me. I said, Rabbi, that's not my name. My name is Lloyd. And he, after the concert we played together, he looked at me, he says, I know, but you can't get rid of that Lazer no matter what. Then he got me to go to Israel to play with him. And it's a part of me, but it's hard. It's like I'm torn because I grew up just like in a very rural place near the beach.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about where you were born and your Jewish identity and stuff like that. Where were you born?
Yes, I was born, me and Mike Tyson were born in East New York.
Cool.
We both can't really go back there and be safe. He'd be a little bit safer than me. And then quickly my parents moved out to New Jersey. And then we kept going back between New Jersey and Connecticut. My dad was working in the insurance business, and so we kept going back. So half my time was I grew up with Italian Catholics, which was very warm and nice, and pretty much, I would say, upper blue-collarish, middle class.
Did you go to Jewish day school?
No, they sent me to Hebrew school. I grew up in Berkeley Heights, and I remember I couldn't stand it because I didn't grow up with that really. We didn't have anything like Shabbat we knew we were Jew. My parents were very Jewish in terms of it was Abraham's tent. Everyone was welcome and it was warm. My parents came from Brooklyn, but I was just skiing, basketball, rock and roll, guitar. That's who I was, and. So they would also there, and then we moved to Madison, Connecticut. They would take me to Hebrew school, but I wasn't connected there. I would either be playing outside with whoever, and in Madison, they're building Giant Stadium, and so the Giants were playing in Yale Bowl in New Haven. So my mother would drop me off. She was into the Hebrew school thing. Dad wasn't. He would pick me up. This was on Sundays. So people don't know, Hebrew school for Jews is usually on Sundays.
Yeah.
So 10 minutes later, he would pick me up and take me to the So I like football, you know what I'm saying? I barely made it through my bar mitzvah, you know, I couldn't take it with the whole cantor thing. Oh God, that was such, I didn't
It was
like
hard,
it.
huh?
Yeah, I just didn't like it. I'm like, Mom, why am I memorizing this? We don't do anything. Well, it's the whole thing of you have to question everyone else is doing it, so you did it. And then when Connecticut was a little
Wait,
bit,
do you regret it, your whole bar mitzvah thing?
I don't think there's anything to regret. I mean,
Did it have any meaning to you, any significance to you?
you know, I didn't like it so much because I was always in this position of I didn't have any Jewish friends, and so I have to invite all my friends, and you feel weird all the time.
Yeah.
You feel a little bit out of sorts, and that's that I didn't like. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just blending in. It's already awkward for me when it comes Christmas time when my friends are saying, "What church you go? Do you want to come to church with us?" And I'm kind of like trying to find the answer. And you had some weird stuff in Madison, Connecticut. Like there was a sign. We were like the first family south of the Post Road in Madison, Connecticut. All these things in Long Island Sound, and it was, you could still see the sign. It got just only a few years. It had been erased. No blacks or Jews allowed.
Wow.
So my friend, they invited me to bingo night. And his mother said, "Don't say his last name."
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you experience any like direct anti-Semitism?
Yeah. I had some stuff there. I had some stuff there that was pretty scary. I remember the KKK came in there in Hammonasset Beach. They came and made a parade. I was freaked. I couldn't believe it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and people let it go on. I remember some of the coaches when I was playing basketball. If I had to take off for Yom Kippur, my mom, she wouldn't want me to. I remember it was weird. I had a Latin soccer coach that he was pretty, unfortunately in the Catholic Latin thing, they grow up with a lot of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And so he was like, would say to me all this strange stuff. And once in a while, when, all my girlfriends were like blonde, and I don't know, it didn't really work out for me, but it didn't work. I didn't like that until this Indian girl moved across the street. That worked out better. She was half Indian, half Jewish. That was just my own thing. But I remember it being a little bit weird, like meeting their parents, and it was very stiff. In Madison, it was stiff. The Italian girls I got along with and their families, it was almost the same as my house.
Right.
And I had aunts and uncles that were Italian Catholics that I would go to church. They were like family. And until today, they're my cousins, and they were warm as the same thing. But that was my Jewish identity. And then when I went to Skidmore College, it's the first time we used to go out to Long Island to meet my aunt, Seaford, Long Island. That was very weird for me. It was very Jappy Jewish, I mean, they're great. My cousins weren't necessarily, but the whole atmosphere was a little weird. I used to tell my parents, I said, these people look weird. They got all this, I didn't really know that they call it makeup. I said, why are their lips so bright red? And why is it so big, the hair? And it looks kind of crazy. And then when I got to Skidmore College, it's the first time I was like, wow, I'm sorry to say it, but I had a lot of anti-Semitism, like all these obnoxious Jews from Manhattan who were really loud. And, I'm used to fishermen or people low-key. I was living in Madison with farmers, and I would just fish with people, and it was kind of then it was like this whole thing. I was like, ooh, this is kind of, and then tried to get me to go to the Jewish things a little bit, and I was like, this is, it looked kind of, whatever it was.
Fish out of water kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess I thought the farthest thing from being deep or cool was to be Jewish until I met Shlomo Carlebach.
So how did you meet Shlomo?
Well, yeah, I was right in the middle of my singer-songwriter. I had a showcase at Atlantic Records. They moved me into Manhattan. I was recording there, playing. I had a day job. And I have one little younger sister. She's 5 years younger. And she had graduated from Wesleyan University. And she hands-on had gotten attached to studying Judaism. She didn't become religious or anything, but she wanted to go to Israel. So she came to teach English to Ethiopians in Israel.
Okay.
So my mother said, can you please, it's going to be her birthday, can you please go and visit her in Israel? I'll pay for the ticket. Just go for a week and a half. here I was, a long-haired hippie, I'm like doing my thing. I said, Ma, what? Me in Israel? What am I going to do? Me and my sister, we weren't really that close back then. Now we're very close. But, she was always trying to tag along. Last thing I wanted to go was to go hang out with the tag along. You know what I'm saying? She said, please go. She convinced me. It didn't take me 1 minute in the line in JFK with all these Israelis. I was like, oh my gosh. I love these people. I figured in the plane, I was like, first time I met Orthodox people, I sat next to someone Orthodox, and I was like, this isn't as simple as I thought, and wow.
What was it about that you liked about them? The Israelis.
The Israelis were I just could see that it was a young, youthful, adventurous spirit. They were warm and they were a little bit loud. I don't know how to explain it. I was always kind of embarrassed when we would go out to dinner in places. My parents were a little bit loud, It wasn't like, it was
they stand out.
They stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the Israelis until today. It was just like, wow, these people are amazing. It was like, I just fell in love with them. But also I met some religious people that I really thought, wow, there's something deep going on here. There is something here. And I investigated that for a lot of years. And there's a lot of good things, Everyone has their things they have to go through in their path, where I took a lot, learned a lot, and grew a lot for that. And then at a certain stage, you got to keep going. And some of those things I keep in my pocket. Some of them things I realized they're kind of not strictly only to Judaism, but all of the religions in general. If you grow up in a conditioned way, they're things that start out, in my opinion, with a spark of truth and goodness, and then it gets old and it gets a little musty. You got to kind of air it out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So Shlomo, where'd you meet him? How did you meet him?
Oh gosh, what a story.
You remember the first time that you met him?
Oh yeah, I only met him twice.
Okay.
One was 3 times. First was a phone conversation, but the way it happened, I came back from Israel, like just knowing I'm going to come back here. I love this place. I said, I don't know how. It's like always wherever I was, I had traveled a lot around the world before then.
What do you think it was? What the connection was?
It's just something.
Was it your Jewish neshama?
I don't really know. It's just, I never, wherever I was in the world before that, I always felt like not settled, like there must be something else going on somewhere else. It was the first time when I got to Israel that I felt like, wow, this is where there's nothing, I don't feel like I have to go anywhere else. I can't really explain it, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
I can't explain it. I wrote my parents a long letter. They were free. They couldn't believe it. I said,
really?
Yeah. I said I didn't want to get off the plane. I liked being with all these people. And but then Israel's so deep. And then I get off the plane. I'm trying to meet some Jewish connection in Manhattan. I was living on 33rd and Lex. And I
went to school on 34th and Lex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Stern.
Oh, sure.
So I went to Stern College.
I know that. Yeah, right.
I'm sure you do.
Good. I don't know if they're the good Indian restaurants. I don't know if you back then you probably didn't go to them. But
yes,
you smelt them walking.
Curry in a hurry.
Curry in a hurry, right? So I couldn't find anything deep. Like I was going to all the conservative, reform, modern order. I was like ready to go. I'm saying, wow, how could it be in Israel? It felt so deep. The people, where is it? I was in Central Park one day, and it was really strange. It's a really strange story.
Yeah, go for it. I love strange stories.
So I liked.
But just so you know, nothing happens without a reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know that God saved me. If whatever you want to say, God is existence, whatever wide term you want. I know that I felt that specifically at that time. I could feel, I was like, wow, I am really being directed, and you have to kind of decide if you want to fight the plan or flow with the plan. Yeah. It's not easy to know that, have that intuitive, but there was a J. Levine bookstore a few blocks from me, So I walked in there and I said, you know what? Yeah, I don't want the Torah because I grew up in Hebrew school and those so boring, those stories. So I go to the lady and said, I liked the Buddha in college. I got really deep into the Buddha. I was a music major, but at Skidmore College, liberal college, you had to study something else. So I took Japanese religion. I got into the Zen.
Wow,
But
cool.
it was good, but it was kind of taking me out. I was like, wow, I could sit by myself for a long time. And it was like I was feeling this works if you're not with people, but I didn't know how to incorporate it with people. So it was kind of like I liked part of it, but something felt me was very isolating.
Okay.
Like the whole monastery concept. Like I was feeling in my soul that the truth doesn't take you out of this. It helps you be in it in a healthy way. So I go to the lady there. I said, do you have like a Jewish Buddha book for me? She says, what's a Jewish Buddha book? I said, I don't want the Torah with all those old boring stories. Do you have something with like short expressions like the Buddha? Like the...
Like a Torah for dummies.
Yeah, like a quick thing.
Concise version.
Yeah, so she says, no, we don't have. And in the back, this old man yells out in Yiddish, Pirkei Avos. She says, Pirkei Avos? He says, yes, give him the Pirkei Avot, sayings of the fathers. So I had this book, Even Till Today, Saying of the Fathers, which is like from 2000 or how old years ago, statements about how to get along in the world philosophy with some commentary. Make a long story short, I was doing a lot of mountain biking because I was mountain biking in Central Park. I would sit near the fountain there, and I was reading this book. Now, I was very naive and I was very a loving person. Like my parents are having everyone live in the house. Someone's divorced and needs money. My mother doesn't ask. My dad will ask my mother, you didn't ask any questions, then they're living in our basement. So I was like, just everybody, you just give them whatever they need. So my parents, like when I got to Connecticut, moving to Manhattan, they said, listen, you have to realize, we don't dislike homeless people, but this it could be a drug addict, it could be dangerous. You better not speak to homeless people. That's what they're telling me. They were trying to do the right thing. But here I am in this book. It says, I'm reading at this time, it says, there's no thing that doesn't have its place, and no person doesn't have its time. And the commentary was saying you can learn from there's something to learn from everyone. And at this very moment, this old beggar was coming around the park with a bowl and a bell. And his whole thing was, he went to everyone, make a wish, don't tell mama, whatever you put in, you get it back 100,000 times. I was like, listen, if there's something I could learn from this guy, that you got me, God. You got me. So he comes over and he says me the spiel. He looks at me. He looks like Ed Koch at like age 80. He's got no shoes, a big green rain jacket. And he says, what are you reading? So I'm not going to say Pirkei Avot. So I just told him I'm reading some Hebrew. He said, oh, Hebrew. He says, Baruch Atash. He makes I didn't even know what he's doing. He makes a blessing. I said, are you Jewish? He says, not only am I Jewish. He says, I pray every morning. I say, what? He says, yeah, there's a synagogue, the Millenary Synagogue. I live around there. Sometimes in the street, there's a homeless building, and the rabbi can't get a minyan for the life of him. So he gives me $5 a bagel. He puts this white beanie, and in a half an hour, 10 times it goes like this, and I just have to say, Amen. And that's my morning gig. I thought, he must be lying, you know what I'm saying? So me and Izzy spent the whole day together. I took him home, of course.
Izzy was his name?
Izzy.
That's my dad's name, too. What's his name?
I mean, people met him after that. The rabbi was good friends with him, and Shlomo knew him. And then I had crazy stories of like my wife's family went to Central Park. They took a picture with him in the thing. So anyway, I take him home. I buy him groceries, let him shower. He was born in the Depression in the park, and his parents left him.
Oh,
so So anyway, he tells me to go there. So this was on like a Sunday. I met him. So he says, come tomorrow. So I had a day job. I was working at a printing place, selling printing. So I told my boss I'm going to be a little bit late. I said, I have to see if this is real. This can't be real. So I go, there's the Millenary Synagogue. It was like on between 8th and 7th and 30. I don't remember exactly where. And I walk in, I can smell his bags. And there the rabbi is taking the Torah out. It was Monday. And Izzy goes, hey, Rabbi, this is my friend, the guitar player. And the rabbi goes, oh, come over here. I had long hair. And he says, hold the Torah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why, they let you do Hagbah?
Yeah.
Cool, okay.
Yeah, that was a cool rabbi. He was had spent a lot of time in Hebron. He was actually a student of Rabbi Kahana, and he knew what was going on. I didn't know that he knew what was going on, but he knew what was going on. And so he asked me what I do. He took me on. I said, I'm a musician. He says, I have a friend that also is a great musician. You got to make a concert here. So I said, I don't know any Jewish music. I know the blues, rock and roll. So he calls up Shlomo. And he starts speaking to him in Yiddish. He sounded something like in Yiddish, we got a lost fish here. Shlomo says, let me speak to him. So Shlomo says, hey, brother, we're going to make a show. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be in Manhattan. Let's make a show. I said, but Rabbi, I don't know it. I know the blues. He says, the blues? He says, I play the blues too. I said, really? He says, yeah, I play the Jewish blues. 2 weeks later, Shlomo Katz, right?
Yeah.
He does all the archiving. He sent me like a year ago, he found the whole video. And he sent me.
Wow.
He sent it to me.
Wow.
Yeah, so there I am. We play the concert. I'm blown away. Shlomo comes in with a big hug. He's telling us these deep stories. And there's incredible simcha. And I have this in my wallet ever since. He gives me this card. And he's like, you got to come play with me in Israel.
Yeah.
On the back of the numbers he said, I got friends. He says, we went out to lunch
Wow.
the next day with him and Sammy,
Wow.
his manager. He says, you come play with me in Israel and I'll hook you up with my friend. So I was like, oh, I didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to go back to Israel, but this was all of a sudden very quick.
This is after the trip that
After
you
the
had.
trip. The trip was like it was Purim time, right around now. It was the 9th of March. I remember I got here the 9th of March. It was the fast of fast of Esther on the plane. I remember because the Orthodox guy next to me wasn't eating, and I asked him what's going on.
Wow.
And so then he said, here, I'll meet you with a friend. I got a friend of mine. His father has a yeshiva there. You can just sleep there. I said, Rabbi, I play guitar and I do exercise. I'm not into the religion thing. He says, it's okay. You can stay with him. So my friend is the son of this. I ended up I took the trip in March. I met Shlomo right before Shavuos. And then I was like, 2 months later, I'm on a plane to Israel.
For good.
I didn't know it was going to be for good. I'm at the yeshiva and they let me stay there. I would go eat something, play my guitar on the roof. It was in this black neighborhood in Sanhedrin. And when I say a black neighborhood, it wasn't black people, it was people dressed in black.
Uh-huh.
But they were really cool. It was called Devar Yerushalayim. They let me hang out. And I liked the rabbi. It was cool. I would come down and ask a few questions. I would start participating a little bit. And one day he comes, he says, I told him I'm waiting to play with Shlomo. Shlomo's going to come around. And he comes one day and he says, I don't think you're going to play with Shlomo. He said, Shlomo passed away.
Wow.
Yeah. So there I was. I was like, so I said, you know what? I don't know. I was a little bit confused, and I was like, I was lucky at the moment because it was so amazing meeting him and being on the stage with him and hearing his stories, and then having lunch the next day, and he gave me all this. I mean, I was still with my band in my minivan, and I would put these songs in. Some of them were in Yiddish, live from Austria, and I would be bawling on the way to this rock and roll show. And the guys in the band, and I'd be like, "What's going on? What is what's happening?" I said, "Trust me, I have no idea, but this is really moving me." It was so deep, but I just didn't realize how there was Shlomo and then nothing after. And I started searching, and I said, "Oh my gosh, it's like Shlomo." It was like so ahead of his time. And then I realized the rest of the Jewish world isn't like this. And I met some of his students who were super cool. And I started playing with the students. I ended up meeting Chaim David and Yehuda Katz, and I started playing with the Sheva. I met the students. And Yankel Shemis, his old manager, was just amazing people. But I just couldn't, I said, wow, I don't know. Then I started realizing that when I got more into things from other places of spirituality, I realized Shlomo was a genius that a lot of times the students would say, well, Shlomo says he got this in the Midrash, but we never could find the Midrash. And then the students would tell me that he was smart enough to know that when he had the House of Love and Prayer in the 60s and he was hanging out with all the hippies, he realized that they had something that he didn't and that the Jewish world didn't. And he would incorporate those teachings into his Torah. And he realized it. And that's when
For example?
He told me, I remember at lunch, we spoke in different things. First of all, he told me, he saw I got real excited at the concert. And, next day I think I put a kippah on just to make it feel, I thought that's what it would be nice to do for him. And so he looked at me and Lazer, he says, Lazer, I want to tell you something. He says, don't forget, always keep it real and not religious. He could already see I was going to be.
I like that a lot.
So I said, I didn't know. I said, what does that mean? He says, remember, real is the beginning of the word religious. He said, he was making a play on the he says, if you always think you're at the beginning, you're doing the right thing. But if you get to the end of the word, that means you become religious. He says, you're finished. He said, because we're talking about the infinite here, and no one knows he says,
what's really interesting about that point is that I grew up religious, and then I stopped being religious. And one of the reasons I stopped was because I felt it was lacking that authenticity that you're talking about right now. Now I've started to become a little bit more, and I feel so much more like myself than I ever did.
Yeah.
And I never really put it into those terms like you've said now, but it's true because it has to be a part of who you are. You have to incorporate the person that you are with the religion itself.
Yeah.
Don't put on I was wearing a wig,
Yeah.
Don't do all of that stuff if you really don't feel it, if it's not really yourself, because it won't last, right?
Yeah, there is this concept of bittul, of surrendering. All of the spiritual paths have this concept of, there is this fast track of opening the gates when you surrender beyond your understanding, because at the end we don't really understand anything. So when we say we're connected to something or understand, we don't really know. But he told me, keep it real humble, don't think you know, and keep it real. So that always on one hand it saved me, but it made me really hard, because every other place I went to learn, I was always like, I would never buy into whatever the whole thing their son. As soon as I saw a red flag, I wasn't just going to take the red flag. I would tell them, this doesn't look proper.
Good for you.
Yeah, so
Good for you. Do you believe that maybe Shlomo was a shaliach to get you here?
He was a shaliach for thousands of people. He was a shaliach we have no idea how much he did for the Jewish people. You can go to today to a synagogue all around the world. It can be some conservative, reform, Ashkenazi, Sfaradi, Haredi, Hasidic, and they're for sure going to sing one of his songs. It's connecting.
Yeah, and of course they have Carlebach minions all over the place too.
Yeah, there's minions, and his teachings were very deep. But what is the deep? He took one of these deep teachings that I realized he took it from a different place. I forgot the story now. I'll come back to it. But he helped me tremendously. But then I realized that I couldn't find that anywhere in the Jewish world. They had rejected him. I think he was very much a Jesus figure. We don't know exactly what happened there, because, we have a lot of telephone tag and politics mixed in, everybody's own version.
Yeah.
But you can go more recently to the Baal Shem Tov. Listen, in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, anyone who knows Judaism today, pretty much you would have to say that Chabad and Breslev and these Hasidic movements, they really have put new logs on the fire to keep the Jewish thing going around the world. And that's from the Hasidic movement. But in his day, the Orthodox establishment wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
They didn't want to accept him. So don't really have to go back guesswork about what happened with Jesus. We can just say the Baal Shem Tov, they also wanted to kill, and then Rabbi Nachman, they wanted to kill, and then Shlomo Zalman of the Chabad, they wanted to kill him because these are people who are coming to give a check to bring orthodoxy back to something that's missing.
Right.
And so Shlomo was doing that, and now it's more accepted today. He pulled it way ahead, but he was ahead of his time.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So, and then I just realized a lot of the teachings that he was giving over, I didn't realize that he took those from from things that were from other spiritualities. Oh, this is what it was. He told me this at the lunchtime. The whole concept about being a light to the nations. He says, he was speaking to the manager. They were speaking, we got to get, Shlomo knew. I heard him speak about the Holocaust. And Shlomo was like, he knew that it was coming here, all this anti-Semitism world, because he said, he knows the stories of back when the Jews were in those places. He says, we would have Ivan come to help us be the Shabbos Goy. But, I don't think we really, when Ivan would come, we wanted to give him a taste of Shabbat. And the whole concept is that you're going to give him a taste of it. He doesn't have to keep it. But he says, I don't think he spoke a lot in the late 50s, even 60s, 70s, that Jews still haven't understood how to be with the world. And he said to the manager something that stuck with me to the beginning. He says, Jews think that being a light unto the nation means I have something that they're missing. I'm going to come and give it to them. He says, that's not what it means to be a light unto the nations. He said, being a light unto the nations is knowing that they have a holy light. They're a part of God. And they might not see it yet, but I can see it in them. And just by loving and respecting them and seeing how holy they are, that will help that light within them grow on their own. It's not that I'm coming to tell them something new that they don't know. I'm just giving them, believing in them. And he says, how can you not believe in every human? Every human is specifically made by, if you believe in God. It's not like two gods. One made the Jewish people, one made the other. He said, they all have, and he said, that's why I tell everyone they're the best. Everyone I meet, because they are. There's no one else like that person. And they are the best. Someone told him, why do you lie, Shlomo, some reporter? He said, I don't lie. He says, you tell everybody they're the best. He says, everybody can't be the best. He says, of course, everybody's the best who they are and what they are. And then so that really, I realized that. I think that's one of the things we're going to have to get over, more humility. And we're going to have to see the beauty in other ways, other peoples, other nations, instead of this heavy overdose of we have so many good things. We have so many. If it's really the truth, you don't really have to be so afraid. You can see people in the world who are really comfortable with what they're doing. They're not afraid of other people's things. But in the Jewish world, there's a little bit of this. You got to be afraid of hearing something or speaking to someone or this. You'll be
Well, it's also part of our past. Every time that we kind of like exposed ourselves, like my father used to have this whole idea that Jews should never be in the government. Jews should never be in any high places because it invokes jealousy and we should always keep a low profile. I've had a lot of guests who said the opposite.
I think he's right.
You do?
Oh yeah, I think there was a, listen, for me, when I got to the yeshiva, the first thing that was so...
Why shouldn't we be proud, though, Lazer, of who we are?
I'll tell you. The first time I heard the rabbi tell this expression, Elu ve'elu devrim Elokim hayim. It was this discussion amongst the rabbis in the Gemara, and he said, they're both right, but they were saying opposite opinions. So I told him, Rabbi, they both can't be right. And he told me this funny story about this rabbi was giving marriage counseling to this couple. And he was sitting in his living room, and his wife, the Rebbetzin, she was in the kitchen. And the rabbi asked the husband, okay, what's your story? And he goes, make it short, long story short, she's like this and this and this and this. The rabbi says, oh, you're right. You can't be married to someone like that. And the lady says, wait, you didn't hear me. And he says, okay, what's your thing? And she says, oh, he's like this. He says, oh, you're right. You can't be with a person like that. So the couple look at each other. He says, we don't need to come to the rabbi to have him tell us that we're both right. That's how we got into this mess. And they leave. So his wife comes out and she says, Rabbi, he says, in all respect, Rabbi, listen, you just told, you can't be that you told the husband he's right and you told the wife that she's right. It can't be like that. And what does he tell the Rebbitzin? What does he tell her?
You're right.
You're right. So, why am I telling you this? When the Zionist movement started, and it eventually got around to this concept, they're going to come to, it wasn't always to come back to the land of Israel in the beginning. It was just to make us a future for the Jewish people. They don't have to keep suffering under all these persecutions. There was some, you could say it was prophecy. You could say it for sure was prophecy. There was some big Orthodox rabbis that told them, if you decide to go to the land of Israel and you're not going to keep the Torah and you're going to buy this land and you're going to come there in the middle of all these Muslims, you are going to spark a wave of anti-Semitism that the world has never seen. Now today, maybe before October 7th, you and I might not have agreed that that's true. We might have known that there's sparks of it, but now that it's come out in such full force, just waiting, we can see that they were right. But at the same time, the people said, listen, we can't stay here in Europe. We're going to get killed here. We got to get out of here. We can say they were also right. But maybe it's the way that it was done. Those rabbis, their concept was, listen, we can't, like your father said, we just got to, in a slow, quiet way, be a holy nation, a holy people, an example to the world without making a lot of noise, and let them just see it. Okay, yeah, it could be that we're going to get chopped off on the fringes. It could be that we're going to suffer, but this whole thing of just being loud and in places all over the world, that they didn't think that's a good idea. Now, you can debate both of the things. You can debate it all the time. You know, well, you don't want there to be an Einstein in the world. You don't want there to be Mark Zuckerberg in the world. I mean, I've only made a living in the last 20 some years. I mean, we used to be terrible. You know how you had to bring a whole bag of cocaine and a whole bunch of money to pay off the record companies. When Facebook started, anyone could just freely go and advertise. I started making a living off of Facebook.
Oh, really? That's how you started?
Well, my Lazer Lloyd project. Before that, no. But you were at the mercy of a record company.
Right.
And how is someone going to know someone from Madison, Connecticut? You would have to, it was real. I had to send out all the cassettes. But Facebook, all of a sudden, for musicians, you don't have to go stick up posters all over. You just use it was incredible.
But don't you think, Lazer, when you would like do a lot of concerts and stuff, and you would be wearing your whole garb before you looked like you do now. You had your hat, and you looked more Haredi.
But no, that was for someone who was in Israel, but most of the other people thought, they didn't know if I was a Jesus freak, if I was from Appalachia.
I thought you looked a little like ZZ Top.
Yeah, because I had long hair, and I had these long payas, but it was connected to my hair, so people didn't know. I mean, that's just how I felt. I tried a few times to look like everybody else in the Orthodox world. I couldn't make it for a day. So I mean, I was living in a very Orthodox place, just going around in jeans and a flannel shirt. That it's very important that you have to feel, I think for most people, you have to feel comfortable on the outside to feel comfortable with yourself, you know?
100%.
But it was a challenge. And that was a challenge that, again, I did in Rabbi Shlomo's. I never told anyone what to do. Until today, I have a live thing I do on Lazer Lloyd, Facebook. Thousands of people watch it. And I don't tell anyone, I'm coming to tell you what to do. I've been focusing since 2015. I realized before when the whole Trump thing started how people are really not knowing how to speak and discuss things without getting this whole conflicted war set. So I just would open it up and I would tell people things. Let's think about things. I would tell them a good story from I could tell him a teaching about Jesus, and I said I don't have to necessarily be a Bible person. I would tell him a Hasidic teaching or an Indian teaching. I said I would tell him, I said, what book do you think that's from? And I would say, you see, it's good, just trying to help people, just get along a little bit better. Not telling, because the one thing I like the best is that I think that we have to really analyze this. There was this famous guy who brought a lot of the Indian teachings starting in the late 40s and 50s to America, Yogananda. You probably heard the name. So anyway, he went to, who I feel is one of my main teachers, Sri Ramana Maharshi, who died in 1950. But before he went to America, he went to him and he told him, what's the main teaching I should give over? And the Maharshi looked at him and he said, What are you talking about? He says, yeah, what should I tell everybody? He says, he basically told him, could you imagine being a doctor and everyone walks into your office, you give them the same medicine? One has bronchitis, one has cancer, one has a toothache. He says, you can't tell everybody this. There's no one you can't just bottle this up and sell it. And so that's what I love. He would meet the individuals from all different religions, the Maharshi, and he gave many different people different answers. Because what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for the other person.
So what do you think resonates the most about you for your audience? Why do you think that you became so popular?
Well, first of all, from Shlomo would always end everything he said with, what do we know? I'm not telling anybody that I know anything. I'm just telling, I tell everybody, I'm not any smarter than anyone. I don't know anything that anyone else does. I've been around the world just because of playing, and I've met a lot of different people, and I've met a lot of people of different colors, different religions, and there's only two types of people in the world. There's good people, and there's people who haven't got enough love yet. And so I just keep it real with the people that I don't really know. I'm trying to just get people to keep their ears open. And my favorite story is, I have a lot of truck drivers that I get like the music, but they listen to when I speak.
American truck drivers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got this great friend, Mickey. So I was at a concert in Ohio, and this VFW hall, for the veterans. And, I don't like to preach or talk too much, but, this wasn't so long after January 6th. And I was telling people, it happens to me also in the Jewish world, non-from people get upset with me if I give over something good about the Jewish teaching, and the Orthodox world doesn't like it when I say there's something that's not working. So I get caught in the middle. The same thing in American politics. I tell people, listen, I grew up liberal. My parents were liberal. My parents were open-minded. What's going on today, what people are calling liberal, this is not liberal. I saw way back, because I had fans, and my friends even, they were becoming very wacky. I said, this is like fascism. This is like cancel culture. But I said, listen, Donald Trump might have some good things, but I told people, I said, listen, I know American history. I said, January 6th, that was treason. I told them, that was treason. And I said it in the VFW hall, where I know 95% of the people there, including my friend Mickey, they are super pro-Trumpers. So I told them, I said, listen, I'm not saying anyone's perfect, but don't make people into Satans or messiahs. You have to take it issue by issue. And so he comes to me after the concert. He says, Lazer, I got to tell you, I love your music. But you know what? I hate that you make me think. And you make me think. He says, Lazer, I might not always agree with you, but why? You make me think, and I can see, saying. So that's all. I'm just trying to open up. I don't have the answers. And anyone thinks they got the answers in this world, they should not be speaking to people. Yeah. But I do believe in people. I grew up meeting a lot of people. My house was very giving, and I just felt that I have that skill to see the good in people, and I don't think I don't sell anything. I don't have any books. People say I'm not trying to get the money from them. I'm not trying to give speaking tours. So I think I'm not a famous or anything, but there's a certain amount of people who just want to have someone that will give them something out of the box. You know what I'm saying? That different people can. I
That
always
make them think.
Yeah, make them think. And I just want to give it, I always say if I have people from India that will listen, somebody who's Catholic, somebody who's Jewish, I just want to get
Yeah, I saw you wrote a Christmas song, right? Where you played a Christmas song?
Yeah. Because listen, that's a big part of me. Anyone who grows up in America, if you're not in this closed Jewish world, you don't understand how you're conditioned from television, from society. It's in your, there are some good things. But, my Christian friends who are really Christians, like real deep Christians, I have a lot of friends that we have open line. They said, Lazer, don't forget, America is, Christianity is paganism with the Torah. That's what they say.
Interesting.
The ones who are really looking for the real Jesus. It says, we like Jesus, but Christianity, that's got some stuff mixed in there. And America, we got to remember, it's good that it's watered down from all the fights we had in Europe. And my friend, he told me, he says, Lazer, these white supremacists are so stupid, they don't know history. They think if everyone was white and Aryan, everyone would just be hokey-dory here. He says, they don't know. All the wars were white Aryans killing each other in Europe because they were Protestant Catholics and all the Luther. He says, these people are retarded.
Do you feel more American than Israeli, or Israeli?
You know,
More Israeli than American?
I don't feel either. When I was in America, I think the things that I liked about it, but I mean, there is this free spirit that I do like, that I think is the actual American thing, is that having this real free, out-of-the-box spirit, a lot of nature thing. But, you have to deal with that history of, wow, I think we kind of used, we didn't do too good to the Indians and the slaves, and we kind of conquered this whole thing. It's not like we just fell off the boat and we're like these nice, adventurous people. It's mixed, Yeah. You have to deal with that. And Israeli is very broad, like I go and play these kibbutzim. I was telling my friend just 2 days ago on Shabbat that it could be hardcore. Like I went and played one of these kibbutzim, and I walk in, and this old guy is like 75. He looks at me, and he sees I look kind of like, I don't know, liberal musician, whatever. He says, I want you to know, son, we're communists here. He says, I don't know if you know the history of this kibbutz, but this is Shomer Tzai. We're real communists. So I don't know what you plan on playing or saying. He's got, those guys who work in the field all day. He's got wrinkles everywhere. It looks like his skin, if you shot a bullet, it wouldn't go through it.
Leather skin.
Leather skin. And then there's other Israelis that are, wow, they're, I meet them. And I play this place, Lahavim. Everyone there is like this. I don't think they know the Aleph Bet of Torah, but they're just so spiritual and worldly and loving and down to earth and not materialistic. And then you can go to other places where, I meet Israelis. I think they just are out of whack, out of balance with the whole high-tech material thing. Where there's that side of it, where everyone's just like how much money we can make, how many trips we can make out of Israel. And they don't realize that it's, in my opinion, it's not what we're supposed to, it's not in balance, So Israeli for me is so wide, all my family is Arabs, my wife's Moroccan, her whole family, my son-in-law is Tunisian, my daughter-in-law, she's Yemen. So it's like I'm very much in those worlds. That's a whole different world. I felt very comfortable in that world because I find it's more humbler. And I just like simple people, what I'm saying? My father-in-law was working.
But you chose to live here, right?
I fell in love with the spirit. I met the kibbutzim, Ayanot. I love the kibbutznikim. I was in En-Gedi. I think we have to get back to something. There was not everything good there, but this whole thing of all the families living in the same size house. If you chosen communism, it can be a good thing. Chosen communal thing, not when it's forced on you.
100%.
But
I agree.
all the kids would go to play at the same pool. They had a pool. Okay, they had a simple house, but they had the cafeteria. They had the soccer field. They had this, and they were doing it together. It was a beautiful thing. And I always tell people, I said, Israelis, if you like the hippies, you got to like Israelis because, 50 years before there was any hippies talking about communal living, the Israelis did it. And they were doing it.
100%.
And so that's that.
Some successful and some not.
Yeah, there was some things that were bad that came from that. It was not easy. They didn't mean to do it. I mean, my friends would tell me, I got friends from these famous bands who they grew up in these kibbutzim, and when the kids would live separate from the parents. He said, they didn't want to do this. They were working fields with malaria and all this stuff, living in tents, and they decided it's not healthy for the kids. We'll have the kids live in a building. And we were finishing work, going sleep in the tent, getting up early, right on the spot. So it's not like they said, oh, this is the best way to raise kids. Out of necessity, this is how it started. But after there was a lot of red flags, it was hard for them early enough to change it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to put, just like I tell everybody, if you try to say what's Christian, oh, come on, there's so many different, a Christian for me in Texas, in America, my buddies, it's so different than the Christians I meet in Italy or France or these Orthodox Christians in Ukraine. It's so different. The same thing, they'd say, what does it mean to be Jewish? It could be so different.
And yeah, for sure.
And Israelis is like, I love it. It's in one place. It's just like the topography? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Where you have like this, it's so close, the beach, the mountains, the desert, everything's within such a close range. Also, you can be like, it's like you can go from Bnei Brak to a totally Tel Aviv thing in a 7-minute drive.
Yeah.
You're in two completely different worlds.
Yeah.
And it's both Israeli.
Yeah.
So I
was in the desert this weekend. I went to a festival in the desert.
Where?
In Chatzeva.
Where?
In Arava desert.
Oh, the Tribal Fest?
Well, no, it was a psychedelic, like a Mesibat Teva kind of thing. Yeah.
I played the week before at the Tribal
So I
Fest.
know. So you also had a psychedelic festival a couple of weeks ago, right?
The Tribal Fest.
The Tribal Fest.
Yeah, yeah.
What is that all about?
That was nice. That was people has like Jewish connected of all sorts type of
pictures
Jewish.
of that. Were there like mostly men there? Were there any women there?
No, there was. It was mixed.
Yeah?
It was mixed. But it did have a more Orthodox feel to it, but a hippie Orthodox. There's like a whole group of people that would make the festival at the Carlebach festivals, So it was kind of that kind of vibe, but with some DJs and trance. I think they wanted to make something for the Nova to keep that vibe going. So, I came and played, and it was nice.
Lazer, I wanted to ask you about something.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, why do you think, I love all kinds of music, okay? People here, I don't know if it's just in Israel or whatever, but they're like, what kind of music do you like? And they want to know one specific type that's your favorite. I don't have a favorite. Different music speaks to me. I can't explain it. I like all different kinds of music, right?
If it's good,
what
it's good.
What do you think is it about a person that connects to one type of music more than another type?
A lot of it is the same thing with philosophy and their spirituality. A lot of it, which we don't realize, the same thing with food, is our conditioned upbringing. We don't realize how connected we get to what we're exposed to when we're young. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that influences it. And then the next thing is it depends what a person needs. Israelis, people don't understand why Israelis need these trance dance. For years before October 7th, it can be very stressful here. So this whole trance, just this meditative, I don't want to think, I don't want to hear words, I just want to totally lose myself for a while. It's very calming with all its noise.
Therapeutic.
It's therapeutic, but for someone who's calm, I can't take it for 2 seconds because I feel myself calm inside. So for me, that's very
I only go once every few months because, like you said, I need it as a therapy, and I need to have enough to release. I need to come there with a big, full container. So I pile it up, and then when I go, I let it all out.
Yeah, and it's very hard because people don't realize. Usually, when they're listening to music, we have to ask ourselves, am I looking for an escape from myself or am I looking to connect to myself? So for some people, before they can connect to themselves, they need an escape to kind of break away from their pain and the suffering. And so they need music that they feel helps them to escape. For them, they might not. It might be very hard for them at that present to listen to music that's doing this interconnecting to yourself, because they're not there. So every person has to decide, has to know themselves. What's the reason I connect to this music?
Yeah. And also different stages in your life. You're
course.
different. You're connected to different types of music.
Yeah, and listen, people always tell me, "Oh, Lazer, rock and roll has such a sexual edge to it." I said, "Hey, listen, don't knock sex. You came into the world from that. Sex is the highest energy in the world. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing."
100%.
So I said, you can't ignore that energy. You have to know how to funnel that. You can't repress it. You can't obsess it. You have to know the high end of it. All the Tantra teachings deal with that, and there are deep things in the Gemara that deal with that. Judaism is very open if you look at it compared to Islam and Christianity, but to a certain extent, and then other phases, people realize this is so high. It's like people always ask me, why do the Jews make Kiddush, the holiest time of the year, is Friday night? They make Kiddush, they're sanctifying life. Why do you use wine? Muslims, they get pissed off. You can't drink alcohol. But in Judaism, the concept of being holy is knowing that usually whatever can be the most forceful, creative force can also be very destructive. It's like nuclear power, even a kitchen knife. You can kill someone, or you can make an operation and heal someone. You can chop the vegetables. The same. So when we're making a Jew, to be a Jew is to face that challenge. So we're making our holy day. We're making ourselves holy by raising up the wine, saying we're going to sanctify the life. And that's why it's a mitzvah to be with your wife, your husband, on the holy day. So my Christian friends say, "Oh, I was sure that Jews don't eat or don't have any sex on Shabbat. It's holy." I said, we don't look at it like holy. If that was
sex
God,
is supposed to be holy in Yiddishkeit and Judaism.
Yeah, it is. But so I said, if God was afraid of these things, He wouldn't have made the world. I always tell him that's the argument the angels said were complaining to God and Moshe when the whole Torah gives out. Moshe says, "You guys want a world without humans, without mistakes. That's what you are. You're angels without the world. But the creation and world is how to live in it and deal with it." So it's the same thing with the music. Sometimes a lot of people like rock and roll, they don't realize that there's really this sexual energy that they're tapping into. Well, same thing with the blues. And a lot of people don't understand that that's what's happening to them. And sometimes it can cause obsessive drugs or alcohol and bad behavior that will bring you down. But if you know how to tap it and tap it in the right way, you can also just be with that energy and feel it and realize the beautiful, exciting thing of what's in the world. That's how the world's created.
Do you feel every time you sing the blues, do you feel it inside? Like when you have to sing certain songs that are really emotional,
Yeah.
is it an act or do you really feel it inside when you sing it?
Yeah, if it's a song I wrote, I'm not going to tell you all the time, because sometimes, listen, sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I got stuff going on, sometimes, since October 7th, people want me to play another, but I'm on the stage and I'm just like so broken for everyone who's broken, and I'm like, it's hard for me to sing about my own. I used to write a lot of songs of my own personal struggles and what it means to be in the world and how to deal with that, and after October 7th, your heart in Israel were all with all the people who are suffering or still suffering.
That's what I wanted to ask you, how your music changed since October 7th. Has it changed?
Oh, yeah. It's a very confusing time. It brings out a lot of music. We have to realize the whole unbelievable music of the 60s came on the footsteps of the Vietnam War.
Right.
So whenever you have this energy, there's the great potential. But I think we're still going through that mourning stage. I think I still feel a lot of mourning.
We're still in the war.
Yeah.
It's not over yet.
Not over, but I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that this is not something you take the foot off the gas. These people they used to just talk about it, and a lot of Israelis didn't want to know that they really would state a certain percentage of the jihadist Muslims who control the Palestinians would say they want to annihilate us. And after October 7th, they acted on it. So which means that they really do. That's prevalent there. So a lot of people have to wake up to the fact that, wow, this isn't just about President Trump and Bibi coming up with some writing on paper and this whole thing ends. These people are going to keep going.
Yeah.
And you can't kill them all. It's something we have to deal with. So it's like, there's a lot of things going on. So I kind of I didn't release any music because, first of all, I really don't like.
Have you written anything?
Written a lot of music,
Okay.
I have songs I really like, but I don't want anything specifically relating to the war or the nation, because I really don't want to have it look like you're trying to make something off of that. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
It
yeah.
still doesn't feel the right time to do that, and I have a lot of mixed emotions about it. I mostly want to write about the eternal conflict here. I was telling people, I told you before we started the podcast, I was ill to my stomach a year before the 7th of October. We have all the videos. I played 2 days before it in Jerusalem, in Sukkot, and I was telling people there in the concert, I have this song called Miracle. And the band remembers, and I got a video of it where I'm telling the people, please, I was telling the whole year, I know, I play for all the people. I pray for all the types of people in Israel. You guys are going to have to stop this thinking you're going to control them or you're going to control them. You're going to have it all your way. If you don't come down from the tree now, this is going to be really bad. I could feel it in there. So this is where I really feel I have to focus, is just trying to bring people together and have people realize that there's no way to make a majority in this small country of Jews that it's going to be any way that anyone's going to be completely happy
100%.
having it their way. But we've for a long time made it where I told the people, I told my friends who were religious, I said, come on, don't tell me you couldn't. There's plenty of places you could live where you feel like you're growing the land of Israel, you're keeping the mitzvahs, or Orthodox, Haredi people. Are you telling me you can't study Torah today? It's like an unbelievable freedom. And I would tell my people, friends that are non-religious, are you telling me you couldn't live your lifestyle? Okay, I do understand that it is hard if you're not religious and all of a sudden you can't use, transportation, public transportation. That is, I would say those people suffer more than the religious. Because, all of a sudden, I'm not saying it should be. I mean, the guy from even the far left party, he was against them opening up this mall. He said, because I want people to have a vacation day. And even now you're going to force people who aren't religious that want to have the Shabbat in their own way. They're going to be forced to, if they don't want to lose a job, to work.
Are you Shomer Shabbat now?
I am Shomer Shabbat every second of every day.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so I'm
Lazer.
going to explain to you.
Okay.
Yeah, do you know in terms of the Baal Shem Tov, do you know what when the holiest time of Shabbat is?
No.
It's Havdalah. Why? Because the whole concept of Shabbat is just a practice go to how to bring your holiness into the world. And so the Shabbat is like nothing's happening. But as soon as you make that break into the whole, that's when the holiness begins. But what I always tell people is, when we say, we're telling everybody Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, we say the word Shabbat, it means, if you take the letters, tshuva is same letters of Shabbat. So I always tell people to keep the Shabbat means that when you say Shabbat Shalom, you're reminding someone, return to your peace. Return to your eternal peace, who you are. So I say that's something that a person has to keep, not one day a week. Every second of every day, a person has to ask myself, am I connected to my deep peace? Am I in the heart center? Or am I racing after something illusional? So for me to keep the Shabbat means you have to do it every second of every day. You know what I'm saying? Of returning to your peace. That's what I think it's to teach the world of always to not get sucked into this very temporal physical existence. That's why we're not creating and we're taking up that. But that has to be all the time.
But what about the concept of taking a break from the week of what you do on a regular basis and making that day special?
Yeah, for me, like again, my concept is I don't like holidays or these type of things because I believe every second has to be that continual. So there are people I think that like again, people. If you ask somebody about chemotherapy, is that a good thing? We know, my father and everyone knows someone who went through it. If it's given in the right way, it can heal someone. But at the same time, if it's given too long and not on the right measure, it can kill someone because it ruins the other organs. So for me, it's not specific if something's good or bad. It's what you need. And I think for a lot of people who are still trapped into running after the physical world, this is a good first step. But the reality is, this is something, the concept is to have it, even all of the mezuzah or tzitzit or everything we have it's all here to have us have that higher conscious remembering what is the essence going on here. So a person has to finally get to the stage where he doesn't need outside reminders. He's all the time has to be in that headspace. I'm not saying I am. I'm saying I want to be, and I want to be aware of it every day in every situation, whether I'm in a bar, I'm at a festival, I'm in the bathroom, I'm in the bed, wherever I am. You always want to check yourself if you are returning to your peace.
That's a really good concept. I like that a lot. No, it's something to think about.
Yes, I'm not.
For
But
sure.
I don't tell anyone. I never tell anyone my specific thing because I don't want that to have an influence on what is good or bad for someone else. Because everyone has to know. And I say it bluntly to people. They ask me, "Is to be an Orthodox Jew a good thing or a bad thing?" I said, "Listen, it depends which version of it, for who, at what stage of the life." And I don't know anything, you know what I'm saying? I know that most probably the original concepts from all the religions had some good things mixed in. And I think as we see in front of our faces, a lot of politics get mixed into these things.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you probably have to know how to take the dive-ins out of the mud.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I have a better answer, because even the highest spiritual teachers who knew that the religions were not real said they have a very strong and positive communal effect, that the individual doing his own unnamed thing, okay, well, how are you going to make society? So it does play a certain part. But it can be good, but it could also be oppression. You know, my hippie friends when I was growing up, they're a little older than me, like a few years, but I was hanging out with them. And my friend, I remember Billy, he would always reading Poe and all these other, he got me into the poetry. He would say, Lazer, when we were young, as hippies, we thought the institution is the death of society. Because it's just, you know, it's so rigid and it doesn't take in. He says, after we had our first child, we realized society can't survive without the institution. So I said, well, which is it? He says, remember, Lazer, always remember, the institution is the death of society, and the society can't survive without the institution.
What do you think about Judaism works? Like, why do you think we've lasted this long? Why it's been such a successful religion?
Yeah, well, everything you could say you could say it's the most successful. You could say it's the most unsuccessful.
Okay, but it's still here. I mean, it could have dissolved.
Yeah, it's still here. You know, you could say there's a lot of ways of looking at different things. You know, cancer is still here. You know, or I could give you other example. You know what I'm saying? Because something's still here, you know, I don't know if.
But it works, sort of.
Well, it depends what it means if it works. I would say that you could ask a lot of questions about why is there so much hatred? Why have the Jewish people not figured out in a more positive way? I mean, I look a lot of times at videos of people who are promoting Christianity or Indian teachings or even Islam. Islam is such a hard sell. I mean, if you really get into the first pages of it, you see, wow, this is infested with hatred and it's very restrictive to women, but they sell it. So why have we not been able to figure out how to give over, things to the world? So I don't know, I think we have to respect those people who did all the good things. At the same time, we have to ask ourselves hard questions. Like the rabbis after the destruction of the temples, they always came up with the strangest things of, yes, it's true that this guy was wicked, this was wicked, but it happened to us because we did ABC. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong? The world doesn't know us, don't like us.
That brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have a responsibility to do some advocacy for Jewish people? Because you live in Israel, because you're Jewish, do you feel a certain responsibility, especially after October 7th? Do you feel like you...
Well, as I say, I felt like I know the Israeli people. I speak about for Israel since October 7th. I've lost so many people online, because I just felt like...
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because before that, I would individually, some people knew who would host me, I'm coming from Israel. I wouldn't make it like, I was told the manager and people said, I feel my thing is people are suffering in the world because they don't have control over their mind and they're suffering. I want to give them whatever the individual needs, which I feel is, I have a song called Never Give Up. I have other songs about how to overcome suffering, or other songs about connecting, just being in the moment, song B. And I say, my thing is what can I give the individual, no matter who he is, how can I give him something that can help him keep going in a good way? So I don't know if the Israel story or if that person if that is important. I'm giving them what I feel are the nuts and bolts that have helped me. That some of them come from Judaism, some of them don't. But I do know that the Israeli people are amazing. I do know the Israeli people listen. We've done such a bad job of explaining it. Here is a country with 10 million people. 1.5 million citizens are Muslims. If you go, when you go to the hospital, you see half the nurses, a third of the doctors. You see people sitting there after the greatest horrific terrorist acts for the last 30 years. You go to those hospitals, you don't see the Muslim women who are dressed exactly. They're not scared for a second. They're not worried that some Jew is going to come and just say, that's what's so sick about all these protests and anti-Jewish things on campuses. They're assuming that every Jew decided to handle the war in that way. And so, but I know how loving the Israeli people are and open. And I know who Israelis are. They love the world. There's such a great thing happening here. It has so much to offer the world. So I have no problem doing a lot of Israeli advocacy. Now, when it gets to terms of Jewish,
What does that mean, that you have no problem doing Israeli advocacy? In what?
I've been doing it online, speaking about it since the beginning of the war, and posting about it, things that I think explain. Israel has tried for over 100 years. No one has said that we have to make peace and commerce. We've tried. And there's so many examples. There's so many examples of terrorist acts that happened way before 1948. The Hebron massacre, and then so many others. Way before there was a Green Line in 1967, we had wars.
Right.
No other of these countries, not Norway, Germany, France, America, no one would take in all of a sudden. Back then, it was a few 100,000 people that they said, here, come be within our country. Who would do that after the people made war with you? I mean, America blew up Japan, said, we'll help you rebuild your country, but they're hundreds of miles, thousands of miles away. Here we are taking the same people that if they had been successful, they would have easily cut off Jews' head. But now that they weren't successful, they became citizens. Like, this is good for us. Those people are also crazy. So you know what? Let's get B'tuach Lumi. Let's stay here. So it's amazing that the world doesn't know about this, though. The world doesn't really know. When I tell someone that there's 1.5 million Muslims who are full-fledged citizens of Israel, people are shocked. We haven't done a good job. So, when we say we're so smart, The internal conflict is a lot of people.
Well, you're also being a little bit conflicting because you said before that we should keep a low profile, but on the other hand,
Oh, we're talking about before you start the state. You know what I'm saying? Before you start the state. I would think I told you, both are right. I'm not saying, I don't know which one is the best. I do feel that we always should keep a low profile. Even when you're building the state, it doesn't mean you can't explain. It doesn't mean that you should be explaining to the world, here, what a great example. Show me another, look at this. I mean, do you have a Muslim country having thousands of Jews? When the Jews were there, they weren't getting equal citizenship. People say, oh, the Jews were treated good in Morocco. Yeah, but only if you're second-hand citizen. You can't be equal citizen. The Jews were always, in Islam, if you're not a Muslim, if you live in their country, you're treated properly if you subordinate yourself to them, not as equal citizen. And so here we have so I say, the democracy of the land of Israel is the most successful democracy ever. I really tell people, it's evolving and it's young and it has a lot of things to fix. But it's amazing what these people did. I said, look at how these Jews, I tell people, I said, you know who doesn't like the Zionist movement in Israel? Let me tell you who doesn't like it. The Orthodox Jews, the Bedouin, the Muslims, the Chilonim, the religious Zionists. I said, no one likes it because it doesn't give anyone everything they want. But it's been successful to let every one of those groups flourish and get enough of what they need to have. It's a very small place. It's amazing that it was working.
So why do you think we don't have a good narrative? Why don't you think a strong narrative?
First of all, there was the misconception. First of all, we don't have the funds to do it. You know how much money the Muslim world, not just the Palestinians and Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood in Qatar, they spend billions of dollars on these campaigns. For years of these campaigns, anti-Israel campaigns. They decided we can't make the tanks, so we'll do this. The Israelis, they made the mistake, I saw it. You know, there is a little bit of an Israeli arrogance. I know, don't tell me what to do. I can do it. Of thinking, listen, they don't like us. We just need tanks and planes. We're not going to convince anybody. Now, there is always a certain percentage of people that we know, the key to winning election. Why didn't Trump win the 2020 election? He was stupid. He didn't realize that you didn't have to isolate educated college suburban women over 40 by saying such stupid things. You already have the people so it's the gray area you have to win that can win. And the Israelis, I think they were convinced nothing we'll say or do is going to help these people like us. And I think that was a mistake. There's a lot of people. And listen, Jews like to give money to a Sefer Torah and high tech. I've been playing for the Jewish Agency for years. It's a lot of nice people. It's so outdated. It's so not up with the times. I was telling them for years. I was speaking to people getting the most money. A month before October 7th, the main guy who gives a lot of money to have building in Israel, I told him, listen, you got to take the money. You got to produce videos on TikTok. What's the video to produce? You got to send it make it that they don't know that you're producing it. You have to have a dialogue between Muslims in Israel, where the one starts saying, we got to kill all these Jews. And the other one says, well, I don't know. Listen, how many we got killed in Iraq and Iran and Syria and every place we killed ourselves. This is pretty bad. The Jews, maybe we don't like them and maybe Muhammad doesn't like them. But listen, we get this and this. Not an obvious,
That's a voice you don't hear ever. The Israeli Arabs and the Muslims, they don't stand up.
They can't. It's dangerous for them. It's almost impossible for them.
I don't know. Like I had last week, I had a guest here and she was a journalist and she said, even if you believe that they're afraid, like let's say the Palestinians in Gaza, they're afraid of Hamas. Nobody came to save even one Jew.
Of course. First of all, we have to realize the hard reality that the large percentage of them believe like Hamas. Listen, this is a very bad history here. This is a very bad history. If you live in the West Bank or here, you've seen a lot of things that are out of context. You've heard, and this, people. There's a good video going around now. I shared it yesterday with a lot of people. This lady who grew up in the 50s in Gaza. She was Egyptian. And she tells exactly what you're taught from a young person about the Jews and Christians. She says, you are born in an incubator of hatred. It's so hard until, he says, I moved to America, slowly met a Jewish person. It took me years to get this out of my DNA, this false narrative. He said, these people, this is what they know. And he says, anyone who's tried to speak out, there was this guy in the West Bank that made this theater, they killed him. Yeah. Why did Hamas? I was just at Shabbat at friends who his cousins were from Be'eri, and for years they would tell him, "Oh yeah, we're helping these people. Where there's going to be peace." And my friend, he's secular, but he's saying thought they were crazy. Now he says after his cousins got killed there, and he says the people, a lot of them woke up. But you have these Jewish people that are trying. Why did the Hamas go and get? They know these are all these peaceniks because they know that if they keep going like this, there'll be a certain percent of Muslims exposed to seeing the Israelis are good. That's the last thing they want.
Yeah.
So they purposely wanted to kill all the people that were speaking about peace. That's why they do it to their own people that make anything that's open-minded or this. This is the way Islam, now also Orthodox Jewry, anything that's Orthodox can only thrive in that type of incubator. I'm not going to lahavdil compare. I lived in one of those neighborhoods, and when those people don't like things, they don't call the police.
Yeah, they take care of it on their own.
They take care of it on.
Yeah.
And,
Were you in part of a Haredi community ever?
I mean, I lived in Ramat Beit Shemesh Bet for 15 years. We were the first ones there when we didn't know who was going to be there. Uh-huh. They were making some Chabad type thing there, and I was like, I had a keeper sruga, and I also liked the Hasidic thing, Chabad, and one guy told me, yeah, come, and we were living in this other neighborhood in Beit Shemesh, Migdal Hamayim. It was kind of Russian with English speakers. My wife was just feeling kind of out of place. I said, let's try it. We didn't know anything about that. And then all of a sudden, we see all these people, zebras. I'm in the land of zebra land, people, long jackets, and you know what? I tell people, I'm so happy I went there. 90% of the people are so sweet. I mean, really, I'm talking about really good people. 90% of the people. My wife, she would never imagine that she would have friends that speak Yiddish and all these people in the building. I always tell people, it's like, I'm not afraid to tell that to the kibbutznikim, just like I'm not afraid to tell my Hasidic friends, listen, I want to tell you about my friends in the kibbutz. Trust me, they would help me so much faster with anything I need than any of you people would. They're just so, I have amazing friends, that are just totally secular Israelis, that if they're not doing it because it's written somewhere, it's just that their heart it's in the right place.
Yeah.
So, but I realized that. That's the thing about fanaticism. It only takes a very small violent, and they don't want. I would ask them, why don't you speak out about these people? He says, Lazer, no one wants the headache. They'll start throwing fish through our windows. They'll keep our kids out of school. Our kids will have problems making shidduch. I said, but if all of you get up and throw them out, he says, yeah, but Lazer, it's like no one wants to start putting their energy into that. People don't want to. We don't want to put energy into the violent thing and the bad thing. We're hoping they're going to go away, but they don't realize that they destroy the name for all of them.
What do you think about American artists, Jewish artists, who are not standing up for Israel? Do you think that they have a responsibility to advocate for Israel and for Jewish people?
I want to
especially because of the anti-Semitism. I'm not talking about, obviously, we have our Pekala here, they have their Pekala there. Why is the voice of Jewish people who have followings been so quiet as well? I'll
tell you, I grew up in the Reform and Conservative movement. Before I came to Israel, I just thought, I was completely liberal, and I also felt like why are these big bad Israeli? Why can't there be a way to help these poor people? That if you listen to CNN and you listen to basic news and you're not specifically raised in a Zionist home, you don't get the real information. These people are just as uninformed as the Christians are more informed about Israel, what's going on, than a disconnected Jew in America.
You're right.
He's not a bad person. He's not advocating because he also thinks
He's a product of the society.
he sees the news. He also is just getting. A lot of them didn't ever come here. If I never saw it first, I mean, the first time my sister took me from Ben Gurion, and she took me to Kibbutz En Gedi, and I saw these Bedouin shacks along the road there, and I said, "Take me back." I says, "I don't want to be here." She says, "What happened?" I said, I knew it's true. The Israelis are making these Arabs live in tin roofs. She says, calm down. These are Bedouins. They're not allowed to build. They don't want to build. They want to live in the desert. Calm down. But I didn't know. So imagine how many people go down that road. They see Bedouins living in shacks. They come to visit here. And if they don't get told, if they don't know, they're on their tour bus. They're going to, what's the place in Masada? And they see all this Bedouin living in shacks, homemade tin things that are moved. They don't understand that they're purposely nomads. So there's so much. People don't know. They don't know, and we don't realize. For years, the Reform community. I grew up Reform, way back in the times when it started. We have to remember, what a miracle. Who would ever dreamt we'd come back to the land of Israel? If you would have told somebody that in the mid-1800s, oh yeah, we're going to go back to the land of Israel, they'd be like, I know, the Messiah is coming too. So Reform Judaism was already filtering out everything about Israel for a long time. Not because they were wicked, because they're trying to survive in this terrible diaspora situation where, I got to make my life here in Germany or wherever I am because I'm not moving from here. So I don't want to keep telling my kids what we're dreaming. The Germans don't want to hear that I'm part of the society, but my whole dream is to go to Israel. So that the majority of Jews are Reformed. That's the largest percentage of Jews in America.
And they're mostly conservatives. I mean, what's it called? Not Republican. What's
Democrat.
The other? Democrat. They're mostly Democratic.
Well, that's a recent thing where it became so fanatic. But for years, it was not warm to Israel. And then you have the whole issue of conversion and who's really Jewish. It used to be, in the beginning, who was Jewish was if the father. Many people don't know. The whole mother thing only started when there was a few wars and all the Jewish women would get raped. And the rabbi says, wait a second, we can't go by the father because we know that we don't know a lot of these women who was the husband, who made the child. So we don't want anyone to feel, but let's go according to the mother. But for way before, it used to be according to the father. Because how do you divide the land? According to the father's name of his tribe. Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't think that any organized religion would give so much merit to women that you decide if someone's continuing. I mean, it's obvious the child grows in the body and the mother, it gives the real essence, you would think. But you don't think that the organized religion, which is mostly male-oriented, anti-woman, they're not going to so easily give something over to the women. So it's people who say, oh, look at Judaism, so open-minded. You can't only be Jewish if your mother's Jewish. That did not happen in the beginning. So it was a very hot issue. And as open-minded as we know Israelis are, it was been controlled by the Rabbanut, which was wasn't nice to the Reform movement. The Zionist movement, the Reform movement have had their history. And again, it's not, always they're both right. I could make the argument. I always tell people, don't necessarily try to choose what camp you are. If you really want to help the world, try to understand everybody's argument. Try to understand what and you can see that. Then you don't have to put a tag on yourself. I'm a this and that, this and that. Don't have to put a tag in his
I agree.
Yeah.
I grew up Orthodox, so I always felt like I had a tag on me.
Yeah.
And I had to live up to that tag. It only happened afterwards where I was like, I don't want any kind of title.
Yeah.
I'm a Jewish woman, but I'm not categorized into anything. I don't have a category.
Yeah. I'm not saying what I'm saying is right, because I'm not saying if people listen to me in another 1,000 years, you're going to have Jewish people. But maybe in another 1,000 years, if people take that philosophy, the people in the world will get along better. And in the Torah, it says our biggest dream is that one day we're all going to speak one language, and my house is going to be a house of prayer for all people. So we are leading towards this. The recent song I wrote, it's called There Will Come a Time There'll Be No Nations and No Tribes, and love will be the final religion. And in the song I describe, it's going to take time to get there. But this is what the yearning is for. So while we're keeping, I tell people, while you're keeping your tribe, I don't have any problem of everyone in my building, each family has a lock on his door to have you do your own thing. But there's a certain amount of connection I have of knowing how to respect people in the building. It doesn't mean I don't have my own family. Doesn't mean, it's not that you can't be connected to your tribe. It's the way we do our nationalism, tribalism, that the world is very unhealthy. So we have to know there's a way that you can keep your small micro picture in the near future, while at the same time you're properly understanding that the goal is a real big goal. And I think that the dream was once a very big dream, but like you said, from the necessity of all the suffering all of the years, the community got so closed and so un-Jewish in its essence, it became a diaspora thing, something that's not healthy.
Right.
And so it's going to take time to get out of that, So I have a lot of respect for the people who want to keep what's been handed over for generations doing. I don't like the fact that they don't realize that they're not doing any effort to be connecting to the rest of the world. I would go and play mostly non-Jewish festivals, and then I would be invited sometimes to some of the Jewish places, and I would tell them, I have no problem playing here, but I'm inviting all my fans who are mostly not Jewish. I want them to come here. And sometimes they would tell me, oh, no, we can't do that. That's going to be all mixing. I said, are you serious? Everyone Jewish person is coming here goes to work in places where they're with these people. Are you serious? And really, the rabbis are behind the times. Always the establishment is behind the times. That's why they never like the people who have the new one. They never like that, because the people usually control the establishment. It's a family business. Because everyone we think is the tzaddik of the door. It's, it says, oh, he knows everything by heart. I said, in Japan, in China, they started teaching the kids Gemara because they think it makes you a good business person. And these Japanese people, they can teach a kid by the age 9 to memorize the whole Gemara. Is he going to be the tzaddik ador?
You're right.
So I said a lot of good things to think about. Now, if you ask me where I want to live anywhere in the world, do I feel most comfortable and safe around the Jews? I would say I do.
Have you ever felt like you wanted to leave Israel?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes it becomes very stressful, becomes challenging.
In what way?
Well, those are wars. I don't want to have my kids have to grow up and, I got kids in the army, I got grandkids. I don't want them to have to keep doing this.
Did your concept of Israel change after the war started? Did you feel like maybe you would want to leave? I felt guilty when the war started that my boys had to go fight. And it's against the parents', intuition to send your child into danger. And it was my decision to move here, so I felt like a little bit guilty about it, that I was putting them in that situation. Did you have any of that feeling?
Yeah, my oldest son, I've always exposed him to a lot of different things and wanted him to have his own mind. And he was in the army.
How old is he?
He's 27.
My son is also 27.
Oh, yeah?
My oldest,
Yeah. So from a very young age, he was always open about this whole conversation. Should we live here? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should go to America. And
was he born here?
Yeah. And you know, I always tell them, I said, to be honest with you, I can't tell you exactly, we would have this whole national tribal conversation. I said, we say there's a lot of good things in Israel. I said, I lived in America and I had a lot of nice people. I said, I always felt a little bit out of place somehow. It was kind of, now I only know me, so I don't know if it's because of who my parents were or because specifically I was Jewish. I did always feel that it wasn't completely my place. And I said, but also in Israel has a lot of challenges. I says, I don't like this whole, the religious community scares me that they want to make this, forget about the separation between church and religious state. That makes me nervous. And the conflict with the secular Israelis, I don't agree with all of what they're after. It's sometimes it's shallow, sometimes it's very materialistic, sometimes it's not very cultured. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the Cuban section of Miami. Nothing against Cubans, but I spent some time in Miami where, I feel like I'm in third world, so it's challenging. I think if I had no family here when the war had started, I think I probably would have gone to somewhere in India and probably chilled out for a while. Or maybe to some of my friends in Missouri, they would for sure take care of me. But I think that we've put so much energy into building something really good here. I think it's not going to be easy, but each one of us is going to have to do what we can. I think there's a lot of positive signs of doing good things, but if we don't really understand the depth and the evil of this enemy, it doesn't help. Like for years I was listening to people who they were just finished being the head of the army or the Shin Bet or the Mossad, and I would hear them talk. And it just became apparent to me that these people are not in tune with understanding Islamic jihadist ideology.
Which is so weird.
My
think
friend,
that they were in the army, that they would actually have
because they never. My friends told me when I came here, they told me a lot of these people. I have relatives that lived and relatives that were killed in Judea and Samaria. They told me, listen, Lazer, if you don't grow up with ideology, especially religious ideology, it's very hard for you to understand people who grew up with ideology, and especially Islamic jihadist ideology. It's the sickest there is, and it's the most death-wishing there is, and it's the most. And so, these people who grew up in a bubble in the kibbutz in Tel Aviv, they're basically Westerners who think they see the world as they grow up, and they don't psychologically understand that it doesn't work the same principles that you think that you're used to. Someone treats you like ABC, you give back ABC. So they could be the head of it, and they could all day long know tactical war plans, but they don't understand the mindset. And you can't, Nasrallah, Makshamo, Zichro, the head of Hezbollah, what did he do? Every time there was a new Israeli prime minister, he would study that person from the day they were born to what college they went to, who they married, everything they said, because he always said, you can't beat your enemy if you don't know them. And most secular Israelis are very disconnected from the reality of Islamic jihad. Now, is it complicated? Yes. Why? Because you and I, we've met plenty of really nice Muslims that work in the hospitals, that work in Israeli society, that are not jihadists. Some of them, they are secretly and would be more if all of a sudden the tide would turn and the Jews are getting slaughtered. A certain percentage of them would jump off the fence. A certain percentage of them don't believe in that thing. But who is controlling? This is why, whether you like Bibi or not, he was the first one years ago to tell people, if you want peace here, you're going to have to stop Iran, because they're funneling all the terrorist money into controlling the Palestinians, not letting them make peace. And that was the truth. That was, I always tell people when they speak about Bibi, I said, I see a sickness. I said, we're not going to fix this if you are just so overly anti-Bibi thinking he's the whole problem. We got a lot of problems here, complications. I'm not saying whether he is good or bad, but I'm saying there's so many other issues that you're smoke screening by exaggerating.
A very good example of what you said now about how Israelis don't understand the jihadist mind. The fact that the Nova Festival was right at the border of Gaza and had an issue from the police to be there is a huge red flag of where the Israeli mind was. It was obviously not the fault of the innocent people there, but the fact that they got police permission to be there means that they didn't think it was dangerous.
Especially when you had some things happening. There was some things happening on the border there. There was some things happening near the fence. But for years, now people tell me, well, that was Bibi's fault. He should have known. I said, listen how hard it was to get all of Israel engaged in an all-out ground effort to continue to happen, having hundreds of soldiers die after the October 7th massacre. So no doubt that the head of the Shin Bet and the Mossad told Bibi, and Bibi knew that all of these tunnels were there. There's no doubt. But imagine in 2015, without any October 7th, Bibi gets on the TV and tells the Israeli people who are going to Greece and Turkey and they're making their trips to England and to Thailand and having a good time and sitting on the beach. Everybody, we're going to have a war now. We got to wipe out Gaza because there's all these tunnels and it's going to be dangerous. I tell people, listen, he would never have been able to pull that off.
Right.
Even if he told the head of the army to do it, the society wasn't
He
there.
didn't have just cause to do it.
He didn't have just, even if he had all the information, people keep going back, but Bibi was told. I said, it doesn't matter what Bibi was told. I was sitting people during Itnat Kut in Tel Aviv, seeing how disconnected they were to thinking what would happen. The society was disconnected to that. The leader can do just so much when he knows the society won't go along. He has to take the responsibility. And,
well, that's also partly because we have, we're kind of being held by the Beit Sim of the United States. We can't do anything without their approval.
Of course, they're the ones that waste. They wasted their own money. They would always give money to make a temporary thing, and then for the next election, they would stop it and let Hamas grow back. They wasted their own money. They're always saying, oh, look how much Israel's wasted our money. They should have got rid of Hamas a long time ago. But the truth is, we have to understand, there's a few deeper things that we have to start having open conversations about. So people always ask me, Lazer, could the secular Israeli be that blind that he still thinks that the Haredim and the people living in Judea and Samaria, those are their real enemies and the Arabs aren't? They speak a lot of times like that those people are the problem. I said, listen, if the national religious rabbis and the Haredi rabbis don't start understanding the fear of secular Israelis being forced into have to go under halakhic law, a state of halacha, if you keep having these irresponsible politicians not being sensitive, all these people, they built the state. Secular Israelis, secular Jews built the state mostly. That's why they want a balance of power. Secular Israelis would prefer to have this become a much less Jewish place and a more international thing because you're scaring them. You get elected, and what do? You start making a whole to-do about checking chametz in hospitals. Like that's a major issue we have. It's foolish people there. And also from the nationalistic and from the Haredi community, we don't have leaders there that understand. You're going to have to sell the secular people. We're going to keep going with the status quo that this is a Jewish democracy. We can study, we can keep doing, you guys do what your thing. Let's not rock the boat. But no, if you're, I know, I see it, and I see the speech. If you are a secular Israeli, you feel there's a very great, and these people, I have 1.5 children, and they have 7. And so you look, it's not going to get any better for me. So these people are speaking very aggressive, and they want to change the status quo, and they want to, basically the secular people are controlling all the institutions, the media, the judicial system, the army. Let's not lie. It's not democratic. They're a small population, and they control it. But I tell people, they deserve to control it. Because they made the sacrifice to save the Jewish people. They made this Jewish state. If we waited for these rabbis to get their shit together and agree with each other what they're going to do to save the Jewish people, we'd still be waiting. So imagine I tell the religious people, imagine your grandfather was Moroccan in Yavne. I tell the kids because that's what they can understand. And they have problems getting a minyan because the young kids not so connected. I said, imagine you made this, your grandfather's Moroccan, he built this from a hut to this big Knesset, and they have 12 Sefer Torahs, and each one's so expensive, fancy. And all of a sudden, what happened, there's no minyan. So the Breslov Ethiopian kids in the neighborhood, they start helping you with the minyan. And then, not only they help you with the minyan, they start becoming the majority. And what do? The Ethiopians wouldn't do this because the Ethiopians are very humble. All of a sudden they tell you, you know what? We're 70% of the minyan, and you're only 30. We're now going to change this to have Ethiopian songs and Ethiopian flavor here. And we're not doing that Moroccan thing anymore. Now, you can understand both people, but the smarter thing would be for the Ethiopian people there would be like, well, for years they kept this thing going. They did it. Even though we're the majority, let's make them feel comfortable. They let us pray here. We help them. Let's keep going. But that's what these stubborn Jews, they're not doing that. They're saying, we're growing. We got a chance to overtake them. Let's overtake them. And this is why it causes a secular Jew in Israel to say, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit blind to how fanatic the Muslim community can be, because, I don't want to live in a halakhic state, and these guys are also. So this is the problem. If you ask me, this is the deep problem. A lot of people speak about this, but no one likes to speak about that. You know what I'm saying?
It could be that the reason why there's so much hatred against Jews in the world comes from Israel, which is microcosm of Judaism, and we can't get along with each other.
Yeah, that's for sure. I would say that we always have to put it in perspective. Look at what happened on January 6th. I tell people, Israel is the most successful democracy ever. They said, what? I said, could you imagine in France or Germany, even in America, for months, every Saturday night, you had thousands of people protesting here.
They still do here.
Yeah, thousands. And they say, how many people got killed? And look at the abuse the police took on. And they had I said, any other place, you would have had blood spilled really on a big level. So let's put it in perspective. It's true. We put ourselves a high standard. We would hope that we would get along better and have more understanding, and the religious community would be a little bit more. But we also have every action has an equal reaction. That whole thing on Yom Kippur, not wanting there to be a minyan with the machitza in Tel Aviv. Any woman doesn't want. There's extremists on both sides that cause a lot of suffering for a lot of and again. A lot of the people in the middle just don't want to speak out. They don't want to deal with the crazy people.
Yeah.
So we have crazy people fighting crazy people, making us all suffer. And I think there are people who want to build bridges. And I always tell people, be a bridge builder. Try to be a bridge builder. I always tell people, if you're fanatically convinced that only you're right, and this, I say, listen, go back to trying to find out. A lot of the spiritual teachers say a lot of people who ruin the world and cause a lot of pain are a lot of times people who think they can fix it, and they put a lot of energy into it. But if Karl Marx had a little bit less ego, he would realize that living in his basement, that his Communist Manifesto, if he knew people a little bit more, maybe he wouldn't have written it, or being so adamant that he knows what's needed. The same thing with every movement. Sometimes there's people who really have a good heart and intention, but they don't realize their own faults, their own ego, how much of their own ego is tied into this. So more effort has to be on fixing the individual. I tell people, if you really want to fix Israel, you have to spend time with yourself, knowing yourself better, what you can fix in your inner circle. Just trust me, you can't jump space. And I would see this a lot, and Shlomo would say this. He would see these peace activists making in the 60s, 70s, these festivals, these concerts. He said, these are people who want world peace. He said, behind the scenes, they would be killing each other, yelling and screaming with the biggest egos. He said, they're not going to be able to make peace in the world. You know what I'm saying? They have a lot of good intentions. So it's tricky. On one hand, we have to try to do something to be a bridge, but I do think that when a person brings a real deep, peaceful essence into learning and knowing how much first I have to fix with myself and be aware of that, I think that sends out the energy that's needed in the immediate environment. He becomes, I always tell people, your inner circle is the hardest to fix. Think about the cousin you don't like to speak to, or the aunt, or the ex, or whatever child or parent you don't want to forgive them for their imperfections. Try there. You know what I'm saying? So many Israelis like to speak about, I want to make peace with the Muslims. They wanted me to join this whole thing to make music. I said, I'm only prepared to make if someone makes first amongst Israelis wants to focus on making a peace. I'll pray for free. But if you're going to sell this as something, we're ready to make peace, you're not going to make peace with Muslims. And a lot of those people, where a lot of people got killed and taken hostage, this is not a politically correct thing to say. I remember in the disengagement, a lot of those people wanted Gush Katif and those other places. They wanted this.
Wanted to get rid of it, yeah.
And a lot of mixed into it was this, I don't like the whole national religious camp. We have to say it. It's painful to say. A lot of the people living there won't like it, even though today they understand the problems. We have to put a little balance back and know there will be no peace with the Muslims if we first don't make peace with ourselves. It's just like every person. Don't make any movements if you can't, if you're not speaking to your parents and your kids or your neighbors, and if you haven't figured that out, just ask yourself. And everyone's always right, like my father's family was Hungarian, they had a lot of this, everyone's cutting everybody off, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're 100% right.
So we have to, we have to just start practicing it more on the personal level. It's not a excuse not to do anything. But a lot of times it doesn't get done because it doesn't look significant. I should be out there in the street making a lot of noise. But a lot of times you could be doing, like I really think Anthony Blinken, when he lost the election and they started interviewing, why didn't you bring the hostages back? He said, let me tell you something. And he does not like Bibi. I don't think he's a fan of Israel, of this coalition. And what did he say? He said, every time I got a deal with Hamas that Israel agreed to, I would bring it back to Hamas, and Hamas would not accept it because they would see a lot of protest in the street of Israel against the government. That gave them power. That gave them power not to agree to any agreements. Because they said, if we just keep going, who's losing here? We don't have protests in the street. And the longer we keep going, the less we'll have to give. And he says that's what made it. Every time, he said, I couldn't tell the people don't stop protest. You're protesting against your government? Okay, you can be angry, but protest against Hamas, protest against the Muslims around the world. Go ask Muslim mosques why not it's against Islam to hold women prisoners. Why aren't you doing that? You're clearly shooting yourself in the foot. So that's an instance of my stomach says I want to go out and shout in the street, but the question is how productive am I going to be? Who am I shouting at? Yes, I want to support every family. I had one of my best friends, his niece, she got released, Baruch Hashem, but I saw the suffering, but you have to know it was keeping the people hostage, all that noise in the street. It was keeping them for a long time hostage because the Hamas understood the politics. It understood that we're winning every second we don't do it. There's more pressure against the government. We're winning that, so we're not going to release them. And that's why until Trump, they know he's crazy and they're scared of the craziness. Until he was elected, they weren't going to release more. These are all complicated issues that I'm not, so I would say when you go outside to make noise, you could be right and you could be wrong. You could be fixing the world, you could be destroying the world. But when you look at your own thing, when you really know the story and you know the things you have to fix, you know the things with your neighbors, you know that neighbor that you're not nice to, that you think badly about, just start thinking positively about it. Just, always the answer is start with your own individual to fix the world. There's no mass plans, quick fixes, but those things get sold to people. That's why people join movements. That's why they want to make things black and white when the world is gray.
That's true.
They want to have quick fixes, and all those quick fixes kill the world, whether it's quick, fast food, fast drugs, fast alcohol, all the things. Quick is not good.
Yeah.
But, I wish it should be quick. I wish, but.
We've talked a lot about Israel.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what's new with you or for you coming up in your professional life. Do you have anything going on that you're working on now?
Yeah. Thank God I had someone that connected with me recently that wants to take on start a new YouTube channel of new songs I've been writing and wants to do a whole online marketing. They say, Lazer, you're so talented, but why? You should be on the world level. I don't want to be famous, but I know just for me, today, you don't have to run around the world to have people get the message out. So I have someone who's just now going to be taking it to the new level and doing that. And I just want to try to keep writing. It's going to be a little bit less guitar and more. Before I came to Israel, I was more of a songwriter. And then when I came here, I realized people don't understand the language to make those intricacies, to have people say it. So I started playing a lot more blues and energetic things with the guitar. But really what I want to do is put, the thoughts and the ideas into the songs. And so I'm going to be doing a lot more of that.
Do you ever write in Hebrew?
I try a little bit. The problem is my Hebrew, it's so nuanced. I like to have your finger on the pulse of a nation. You have to really grow up in it. I still feel that as much as I'm learning about Israeli society, it's not the same as someone who grew up here. And I have to be humble about that, especially with the accent.
Yeah.
Do you
speak Hebrew?
Oh, yeah, I can speak it.
Yeah?
I can have a full conversation and understand. My writing isn't so good, but I could speak it. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes.
You didn't remember anything from Hebrew school?
Oh, no, well, I could read. I could read the Torah, and I knew about the syllables and the alphabet, and I knew a few words here and there. But I couldn't speak it, no, not from... There's different levels of Hebrew school. My Hebrew school was they weren't really teaching. They were teaching you to read, but they weren't really teaching you to speak it or anything.
Or understand it.
Yeah, or understand it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Lazer, this is like a really great conversation. You have a very interesting perspective on things, and it's good. It's important to have different views. I like it that people have different views.
Again, I always tell people, don't listen to me, listen to yourself. I'm giving ideas. I don't say I have the answers, but
Well, they say about Shivim Panim LeTorah, right? There's 70
Yeah.
faces. So it means that every face is diverse and everybody has an opinion and has a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And I appreciate yours. And I appreciate that you came here today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate everyone who's decided to take on. This is such a huge thing, and I know people will be influenced by it. I know at this, I know at the tribal festival, people who decided to make it, they wanted to give people positive things. I know there were people that told me there that, wow, just coming to this festival I needed it so bad. And I'm sure there's people who are watching. If there's one person, like I see, listen, we forget how painful is it when one life is lost, but when one hostage is released, is saved, it's a whole world. So someone's going to hear, even if one person hears something that you're doing here, it's such a huge thing.
Well, listen, when it comes to darkness and light, you only need a little spark of light to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so I'm inviting people who I think are amazing people in this country to bring a little bit of light into what's going on, and hopefully it'll make a difference.
There are so many amazing people here that I just feel so humbled by this. I'm amazed. The Israeli people really, I just keep telling them for years, we got to get your light. Somehow we got to let the world, we got to bring more people. It's such a good vibe. I always tell them, I don't mind playing, I like playing a festival for 10,000 people in Texas, but there's something so positive of most of the Israeli events. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. There's something really so really healthy. And I know the true Israeli spirit wants to do good for the whole world. It doesn't want to control people. And I said, the proof is in the pudding. 1.5 million Muslim citizens. I know the Israeli heart wants it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, I think that everybody here wants peace.
Of course.
Kivyachol. Everybody here wants peace. The reality is that our neighbors don't.
Yeah.
They just want to kill us.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do?
No, they don't want to just kill us. They kill each other.
Yeah.
For hundreds of years, the Muslim world has killed each other. From they're not being the same. They had it in the Christian world.
Do you have any Muslim fans?
I have a musicians. I played a guy from Turkey, was my drummer in America for a while. We were good friends. Okay. And I have my doctor is a Muslim in Beit Shemesh, Dr. Hijazi. He is the best. He really heals the old school of healing. When you go to him, he convinces you you're going to be okay and everything's fine. And he does that other thing. And in the hospitals, I've had really close relationships when I've had children in the hospital. And, people, I was really close, with when you're a musician, you don't have a new car. You're in the garage a long time. So I was really friendly with the guys in the garage in Beit Shemesh, these older guys. We had a very, I liked them better than the Jewish people. There's a lot of those interactions where I know that there's a lot of really good Muslim people. I know there are. And I know there's a lot of people that don't hold on to the jihadist view, and they don't want to have this. But the problem is,
they're quiet.
They are controlled by a very violent element. And that violent element is controlled by outside violent elements.
Yeah.
And we have to face that reality. We have to know it and not be blind. And we have to dream of peace. And you have to always have the practical with the dream at the same time.
Yeah. God willing, we will see the salvation in our lifetime.
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it, but I'm hoping for it.
But you know what? I always tell people, listen, we are never in control of what happens, but we're always 100% in control of how we react to it. Yeah. So right now we can choose, this is a beautiful day, there's beautiful people, there's a lot of love, everything we can decide that it's wow. It's really wow. It's amazing, even with its challenges. And it doesn't mean that we don't see that there's challenges or frustration. We just have to realize and be humble. We don't know which is the blessing, which is the curse. A lot of times, I believe that, I don't know if it's 5 years from now, 10 years, or 50 years from now, we're going to understand the blessing of this hard operation of October 7th.
I totally believe
Yeah,
that. I believe that in
And
every
it's-
difficult situation.
And I don't know
it's
if I could say that to mourning parents right now. That's something I'm telling you. I know how hard and painful it is. But if you want to look at things in the long haul, imagine if that kept building another 2 years from now, and Hezbollah had even built more, and Iran had built even more. We're this close to. There were Hezbollah
getting really swallowed up.
Yeah, it could have easily,
Been the end for us.
I mean, it's not over. It's not over. We have to realize there's still a lot of challenges, and it could easily be in a day, a week, or a month from now, 2 months from now, that all starts again. But I think that in the big picture, I think we're going to see it as a very painful operation that saved Israel.
Yeah, well, I believe that there is a plan. I believe that, after the Holocaust, we somehow got Israel. Israel was created. And maybe after this situation, we'll be able to bring peace to the entire region.
Yeah.
It could be that I really believe in life, that out of what you think is the worst circumstance comes the biggest Yeshua, the biggest lesson, the biggest salvation, the best thing comes out of it.
Exactly.
So, God willing, that this will be the same in this situation as well.
Yeah.
And we'll be dancing in the streets, and everything will be amazing, and we'll have another holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always tell people, dance in the heart, dance inside. Don't look for the wows too much. I always tell people, the whole Messiah concept of certain things in Judaism, we have to look in the Torah. Too much focus on the past and the future has people miss out on the actual only thing that exists, which is the present.
That's right.
So I think there can be the dancing. I always tell people, be careful of all these. I tell people who go to Uman or go to the trance things or these quick fix, microdosing things. I say, I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying wherever there's a big emotional flux, the pendulum can always swing very quickly.
You're right.
So I said, try to not look for grandiose things, but try to see the beauty slowly unfolding. It's like the sun. It's like the sunrise. It's so beautiful, not because all of a sudden pops up. It's such a slow beauty. Same thing the way it sets. I think that's giving us a sign to see the beauty in the slow evolution of things. And I think that
the beauty in the process.
Yeah, the beauty in the process, and I think there's a lot of positive signs that we're seeing in Israeli society, and so many people. What you've been doing, starting something new, and there's going to be good things, really good things, and there's already good things, and we're going to all need to give a lot of support. There's so many people need emotional and physical healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lazer. Thank you, and I hope that we'll see each other again soon. I hope you'll come back. Give me your hands. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.